In the world of true crime, some stories are strange. And then there are those that defy all logic. Twisted tales so dark, so bizarre, they blur the line between reality and nightmare. Today, we're diving deep into the top 5 most chilling and mind-bending true crime stories. Cases so twisted, they'll haunt you long after the video ends.
Imagine waking up to the sound of screaming, only to realize the person being murdered is your father. But here's the twist. The killers were his 3 teenage daughters. They stabbed him over 30 times, left him bleeding in the hallway, then calmly called the police. But when investigators uncovered what had been happening inside that home, it wasn't just a murder case anymore. It was something darker. For years, these girls lived in a nightmare, cut off from the outside world, terrorized, violated, controlled. And no one stepped in. Not the police, not the schools, not the family. So one night, they decided to end it themselves. This story will shake you, because by the end, you might find yourself sympathizing with 3 killers. And here's the terrifying part. They could still go to prison. This is one of the most disturbing and heartbreaking family murder cases Russia has ever seen. But it raises a universal question. When no one comes to save you, do you save yourself? Even if it means killing the person who gave you life. Stay with me, because once you hear what these girls endured, you'll never forget it. On a summer evening in July 2018, Moscow police received a call from a group of teenage girls. Their voices were trembling. They claimed their father had attacked them with a knife, and they had no choice but to defend themselves. But when investigators arrived, they found something far more disturbing. 57-year-old Mikhail Khachaturian was lying in a pool of blood just outside his apartment. He had been stabbed at least 36 times. Some wounds were so deep, they nearly split organs. The girls had scratches and minor wounds, but it didn't add up. They confessed quickly. They hadn't acted in the heat of the moment. They'd planned it. His daughters, Maria, 17, Angelina, 18, and Christina, 19, had killed him while he was asleep. At first, it seemed like a cut and dry case of premeditated murder. But as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a horrifying reality inside the Khachaturian home, one that would turn these murderers into symbols of survival. To understand what drove these girls to kill, we need to go back to when their father first met their mother. Nearly 25 years before the murder, Mikhail Khachaturian, then 34, met Aurelia Dunduk, just 17 years old, at a bus stop in Moscow. She had just arrived from another country, young, alone, and unsure of her future. He offered her and her mother a ride. It felt like kindness. It was actually a trap. He took her in, offered shelter, and soon, control. Mikhail was no ordinary man. He had ties to the criminal underworld, powerful friends in law enforcement, and a short temper. He didn't marry Aurelia legally, only in a church. His assets, all in his mother's and sister's names. She had no rights, no money, and no way out. He beat her even while she was pregnant with their first child. When she tried to leave, he found her and threatened to kill her and the baby. She stopped trying. She became his prisoner. Over the next several years, the couple had 4 children, Sergei, followed by Christina, Angelina, and Maria. Aurelia wasn't allowed to work. She couldn't leave the house. Her role was simple: obey, cook, clean, birth, repeat. She was so desperate, she began secretly using birth control. Mikhail, thinking he was infertile, accused her of sleeping with other men. The beatings became more frequent, more violent. Still, No one helped. Police refused to get involved, saying it was a family matter. Doctors documented her injuries, but no legal action was taken. Even at the police station, he once beat her in front of officers, and they did nothing. Meanwhile, Mikhail began isolating the children, especially the girls. When their son Sergei turned 16, Mikhail threw him out in the middle of winter. No coat, no shoes, no money. He believed Sergei wasn't really his biological child and wanted him gone. And the girls, they were now completely alone with him. To outsiders, the Khachaturian daughters looked like typical teens, smiling in photos, stylish clothes, attending school. But their home was a prison, and their father was the warden. After Aurelia was forced out in 2015, at gunpoint, Mikhail forbade the girls from seeing their own mother. They were 14, 15, and 16, still kids, still needing a parent, and now stuck with a man who treated them as property. He made them quit school, installed surveillance cameras to track their every move. He placed a call bell in their room. When it rang, they had to rush to him, no matter the time, day, or night. And the punishments for disobedience? Pepper spray, beatings, even an air gun. Teachers saw bruises, neighbors heard screams. Child services visited but left empty-handed. No one stopped him, no one saved them. Then the abuse turned sickening. In 2014, Mikhail took 14-year-old Angelina to Israel with him. In a hotel room, he forced her into his bed, claiming she wasn't his real daughter, and he planned to marry her when she turned 18. When they returned home, things only got worse. He took one girl at a time into his room for massages that quickly turned into something darker. The girls tried to warn sisters, but no one believed them. One sister tried to hurt herself. She survived. He told doctors she just took the wrong pills. He once drove Maria, the youngest, to the forest, tied her to a tree, and left her there after she refused his requests. He tied her with a tree for hours, but inside, the girls were dying. In July 2018, Mikhail came home from a stay at a psychiatric clinic. His condition had worsened, more paranoid, more violent. He stormed in, furious that the apartment wasn't clean, that the girls had spent too much money. One by one, he pepper sprayed them in the face. Christina, who had asthma, collapsed. That night, as their father slept in a rocking chair, the sisters quietly gathered tools. A knife from his car, a hammer from the toolbox. They were terrified, but they were done living in fear. They attacked him while he slept. Angelina struck first, with the hammer. Maria slashed with the knife. Christina sprayed him again with pepper spray. He rose in confusion, staggering. Angelina stabbed him in the heart. He collapsed on the stairs. The tyrant was dead. At first, the girls tried to lie. They stabbed themselves and claimed self-defense. But within hours, the truth came out. They confessed. They had planned it. Russia exploded with opinions. The law saw murderers and charged them with conspiracy to commit murder, facing 20 years. But society? Millions saw something else. Victims who did what they had to do because no one else protected them. Forensic psychologists declared that the girls had acted in a state of emotional insanity. The youngest sister, Maria, was officially ruled mentally unstable at the time of the crime. Medical reports confirmed years of sexual, physical, and psychological abuse. Still, prosecutors refused to drop the charges. The girls were forbidden to contact each other, use the internet, or give interviews. They were forced to live apart, unable to rebuild their lives. They couldn't study, couldn't plan a future, couldn't move on. Today, 5 years later, the Khachaturian sisters remain in legal limbo. They are free, but not free. Any day, the courts could send them to prison for up to 2 decades. Public support remains strong. Thousands have protested for their release. Russia's lack of a domestic violence law has come under fire, but change is slow, and justice still uncertain. This story asks one question, and it's a hard one. When someone has been tortured their whole life and no one helps, do they have the right to end the abuse themselves? If society, police, and family had acted sooner, 3 young girls wouldn't have had to become killers to become free. So now you tell me, are they murderers or survivors? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to share this story, because some crimes happen long before the murder.
The desert can keep many secrets, but when the flames of a burning car lit up a lonely Arizona highway in April 2023, the truth it revealed was darker and more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. This is the heartbreaking case of Mercedes Vega, a young woman whose life was full of promise, ambition, and resilience, until the night she vanished and was found burned alive. In April 2023, Mercedes Vega was last seen leaving her apartment in Tempe. She was last seen around 9:15 p.m., heading to her car in the parking garage of her apartment complex. Surveillance footage captured her walking confidently toward her vehicle like any other night. But that's where things took a dark turn. She never made it to meet her friends as planned. Instead, her car turned up abandoned not far away near a spot called Culinary Dropout in Tempe, with signs that something had gone terribly wrong. Her body was found in the middle of the desert, burned alive in a vehicle. A caller reported a car on fire in the desert. He told dispatchers he could see flames inside the vehicle.
CBS 911, where's your emergency?
I just want to report a car on fire up the side, the north side of the westbound lane, something like that. About the 85 and a half mile marker. He went down in the bushes, but I saw a flame inside the vehicle.
And even more chilling, he said he saw someone standing in front of it.
You said there's people outside the vehicle?
I agree with at least one person outside.
How did she get there? And who could commit such a brutal crime? Mercedes was born on March 10, 2001, in Anchorage, Alaska. From childhood, she radiated energy, humor, and warmth. Her parents, Erica and Tom Pillsbury, described her as intelligent and fun-loving, with a sharp wit and an infectious laugh that could brighten any room. She was musically gifted, played violin, and even sang the national anthem at sporting events. She was also a strong swimmer who once said her soul belonged in Hawaii. When Mercedes moved with her family to Arizona, she brought that same determination into her adult life. Just 22 years old, she was living independently in Tempe, supporting herself as an exotic dancer while saving for bigger dreams, to open her own gym and work as a personal trainer. To those who knew her best, she was independent, ambitious, and strong-willed. But Mercedes also carried scars. In October 2020, she was robbed at gunpoint outside her Phoenix apartment. That terrifying ordeal left her shaken but determined. She testified against her attacker, identifying him as Kojo Yum, and provided a powerful victim statement. That courage, however, may have sealed her fate. Fast forward to April 16, 2023. It was a Sunday evening in Tempe. Mercedes planned to for dinner, but later changed her mind and decided to head to work at the club. Around 9:15 p.m., security cameras captured her walking confidently through her apartment garage toward her car. But this ordinary moment would soon become extraordinary, because she never made it to meet her friends, and she never came home. Her car was later found abandoned in a parking lot near a restaurant called Culinary Dropout. The keys were still in the ignition. To police, this suggested haste, a struggle, or worse. Evidence confirmed their suspicions. Traces of Mercedes's blood were found smeared inside the car. Meanwhile, another car, a white Chevrolet Malibu, had been seen near her garage that night. Hours later, that same Malibu was spotted far from Tempe, veering off Interstate 10 into the desert. Just after midnight, a driver reported flames shooting from a car in a ditch. Firefighters rushed to the scene, but by the time they put out the blaze, the damage was irreversible. In the back seat of the Malibu, they discovered a charred body. At first, there was hesitation to confirm the worst, but fingerprints quickly identified the victim, 22-year-old Mercedes Vega. What investigators found at the scene painted a horrifying picture. Inside the vehicle were bottles of bleach, lighter fluid, and latex gloves, clear signs of planning. The fire wasn't an accident. It was a cover-up. The horror deepened when the autopsy results came months later. Mercedes had been brutally attacked before the fire. She had a gunshot wound to her arm, blunt force trauma from repeated blows to her head, and chemical burns from bleach on her face and down her throat. But worst of all, the medical examiner determined she was still alive when the flames consumed the car. Her official cause of death: smoke inhalation and thermal injuries. She had been burned alive. Her family was devastated. Her mother, Erica, described the moment police told her the news, feeling like her soul was being ripped out. The case shocked the state of Arizona, raising urgent questions. Who could commit such a brutal act? And why target Mercedes? Detectives began piecing together her last days. They couldn't ignore the shadow of the 2020 armed robbery case. Mercedes was due to testify in court against her attacker, Kojo Young. The very next day, April 17th, 2023. Could her upcoming testimony have been the motive for her murder? Investigators began tracing connections. Slowly, the puzzle came together. And the deeper they dug, sinister it became. The investigation stretched across state lines and took months to crack. But when the truth emerged, it exposed a chilling conspiracy involving just one, but three men, all linked back to the man Mercedes had once testified against. The first breakthrough came in November 2024. Police arrested Sincere Patrick Hayes, a 22-year-old from Tennessee, who was already in custody on unrelated charges. A bloody plastic grocery bag found in Mercedes' abandoned car had preserved his fingerprint, and once his prints entered the system, the match was undeniable. Hayes was extradited to Arizona, where he faced charges including first-degree murder, kidnapping, armed robbery, arson, and conspiracy to commit murder. Prosecutors announced they would pursue the death penalty, citing the cruelty of the crime and its motive, silencing a witness. But Hayes wasn't acting alone. In June 2025, detectives arrested DeMarcus Gray, another man from Tennessee. His fingerprint was found on a plastic cup inside the burned Malibu, and his cell phone records traced the same path as the car carrying Mercedes into the desert. Records showed that Hayes and Gray had even flown to Arizona together just weeks before her murder. Then, in July 2025, came the final piece: Kojo Young, the man Mercedes had identified years earlier as her armed robber. He was indicted by a grand jury and charged with orchestrating the entire plot. According to investigators, he financed the flights for Hayes and Gray, arranged for the Malibu to be obtained under a false name, and even made calls directing the operation. His motive was chillingly clear: to silence the young woman who was about to testify against him. In court, prosecutors laid out the evidence. Hayes's fingerprint, Gray's DNA, travel records tying them together, and Young's financial trail paying for their movements like a puppet master. For Mercedes's family, it was both a relief and a heartbreak. Relief that the suspects had finally been named. Heartbreak knowing that the attack on their daughter wasn't random. It was calculated, premeditated. She was hunted. Her mother, Erica, and stepfather, Tom, attended every hearing. They described the delays in the case as agonizing, but they refused to give up. They spoke to the media, raised funds for legal costs, and kept Mercedes's name alive in the public eye. They even scattered her ashes in Hawaii and Alaska, the two places she loved most, as a way of honoring her. As of now, all three men, Hayes, Gray, and Young, remain in the grip of the legal system. Hayes faces the death penalty. Gray is awaiting extradition and trial. Young, accused of masterminding the entire plot, has pleaded not guilty and even attempted to represent himself in court. But for Mercedes's loved ones, no outcome will ever erase the pain. They lost a daughter, a sister, and a friend in the most brutal way imaginable. This case is more than just a crime story. It is a reminder of the dangers faced by witnesses who bravely stand up for justice. And it's a warning about the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of ordinary lives. In the end, Mercedes's story is one of tragedy, but also of resilience. She refused to be silent in 2020, even after facing violence. And while her life was stolen, her courage continues to shine through her family's fight for justice. This is the heartbreaking case of Mercedes Vega, a young woman whose dreams were stolen, but whose story will never be forgotten. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoy watching, please hit the like button. And if you like watching more thriller and true crime stories, make sure you subscribe our channel. See you in the next video. The story of a 27-year-old woman whose tragic fate shocked all of Europe. She was chasing a dream on a beautiful Greek island. A 27-year-old woman full of life, love, and ambition. But in a single night, that dream twisted into a nightmare. She vanished into the darkness, her last messages sounding desperate, her phone suddenly silenced. For days, no one knew where she was. And when the truth finally surfaced, it was far more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. This is not just another vacation gone wrong. This is the chilling murder of Anastasia Patricia Rubinska, a story of deception, violence, and a desperate hunt for justice. Before we dive deeper into this chilling case, if you love true crime stories that reveal the darkest corners of human nature, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Anastasia was born in 1996 in Wrocław, Poland. Friends described her as vibrant, ambitious, and full of dreams. She wasn't just another young woman working her way through life. She wanted more. She dreamed of modeling, of traveling the world, of breaking away from the ordinary. To fund her ambitions, she threw herself into hospitality jobs. She worked in restaurants, bars, and hotels, always saving money and chasing opportunities that allowed her to travel. To her, every shift wasn't just work. It was a stepping stone toward her dreams. And she wasn't alone in this journey. She had been in a long-term relationship with her boyfriend, Michal. For over a decade, they had been inseparable, partners in life and in adventure. Together, they decided to spend the summer of 2023 on the island of Kos, Greece, working seasonal jobs in its booming tourist industry. It sounded perfect. Work hard, make money, explore paradise. By May 2023, Anastasia was waitressing at a luxury five-star hotel in the town of Marmari. Mikhail worked nearby. Their plan was simple: earn good money for the summer, save up, and then move on to the next chapter of their lives. But Anastasia's family back home in Poland, especially her brother Adrian, remained the anchor in her life. She called often, updating them on everything: the long workdays, the beautiful sunsets, and the carefree life of tourists around her. Her Instagram painted the picture of a young woman who was truly happy: sunsets, beaches, laughter, and love. On the surface, Anastasia was living her best life. But in June 2023, everything would take a horrifying turn. It was June 12, 2023. The island of Kos was buzzing with tourists. The streets of Marmari glowed with energy, cafes filled with laughter, clubs pulsing with music, and bars crowded with both locals and travelers. For Anastasia, it was a day off work. She decided to relax, unwind, and enjoy the festive atmosphere. By 8 p.m., CCTV cameras captured her at a local cafe. She wore a pink floral dress, with blue sunglasses perched on her head, and carried a silver backpack. She looked carefree, even playful. But as the evening went on, Anastasia started to feel uneasy. She had been drinking, perhaps more than she planned, and soon she called Mikhail at his hotel shift. Her voice was shaky. She admitted she was drunk and felt uncomfortable at the party. She told him she was trying to arrange a ride on a motorbike to meet him. Minutes later, she texted him again. The first message said she felt uncomfortable. The second said she was fine. But detectives would later question whether Anastasia had even sent that second text herself. When Mikhail went to meet her at the spot she had shared, Anastasia wasn't there. Her phone went dark. By 11:38 p.m., a tracking app pinged her phone in a quiet area about 5.5 kilometers away, near Tagaki. Mikhail rushed there, desperate, but found nothing. Her phone was unresponsive. Anastasia had vanished. By the early hours of June 13, Mikhail went to the police. He explained everything: the texts, the motorbike, the phone's final location. This wasn't a case of someone running off after a night of drinking. Anastasia was responsible, grounded, and deeply committed to her boyfriend and family. Something was very wrong. Police took the report seriously. They launched a missing persons search with officers, volunteers, and even drones scanning the island. A public alert described Anastasia in detail: blonde hair, brown eyes, 1.65 meters tall, last seen in her pink floral dress. But as days passed, hope began to fade. On June 17th, 5 after her disappearance, a passerby discovered her phone. It had been discarded near an abandoned building. The SIM card was missing, deliberately removed. Investigators now believed this wasn't just a disappearance. This was foul play. Surveillance footage gave detectives their first major lead. A mini-market camera captured Anastasia leaving with a 32-year-old Bangladeshi man on June 12. They were seen walking toward a motorbike. The man was a seasonal farm worker, living near Marmari. Police questioned him almost immediately. Inside his modest home, they found strands of blonde hair, a yellow sweater with suspicious stains, and even a plane ticket to Italy, scheduled for the day after Anastasia vanished. He also had scratches on his face and hands. He claimed they were from farm work. Police weren't buying it. Worse, forensic analysis of his phone revealed chilling searches the night Anastasia disappeared. How to remove fingerprints from a body. It was clear. Anastasia hadn't just vanished. Something much darker had happened. On June 18th, after days of combing the island, volunteers searching the wetlands near Tigaki stumbled upon something horrifying. Hidden beneath a tree, covered with branches and wrapped in a plastic bag, lay Anastasia's body. Strangled. The autopsy revealed injuries consistent with a violent struggle. There were also signs of sexual assault. The paradise island of Kos had turned into the setting of an unspeakable crime. And now, police were convinced they knew who was responsible. By June 19th, police moved in and arrested their prime suspect, the same man last seen with Anastasia on CCTV. But what investigators uncovered in the following days painted an even darker, more disturbing picture than anyone imagined. By June 19th, 2023, the mystery of Anastasia's disappearance had become an international headline. Tourists on the island were shaken, locals were outraged, and her family in Poland was living a nightmare. Police had little doubt about their main suspect, the 32-year-old Bangladeshi farm worker identified in the media as Saluddin S. He had been the last person seen with Anastasia on CCTV, and the evidence piling up against him was damning. When detectives returned to question him, his stories kept changing. First, he claimed Anastasia came to his house to buy hashish. Then, he said she visited briefly but left unharmed. Later, he insisted she wandered off confused after smoking. None of his explanations matched the evidence. The blonde hairs found in his house, the stains on his clothing, the scratches on his skin, the plane ticket to Italy, all of it told a different story. And then there were his internet searches, made just hours after Anastasia was last seen alive. How to dispose of evidence. How to remove fingerprints from a body. Police had heard enough. Saluddin was placed under arrest, charged with abduction, rape, and intentional homicide. As investigators dug deeper, a disturbing timeline began to emerge. On the night of June 12th, CCTV showed Anastasia leaving with Saluddin. She got on the back of his motorbike. That was the last time she was seen alive. Hours later, cameras caught Saluddin returning home alone around 1 a.m. He was carrying garbage bags. Detectives believe these were used to dispose of Anastasia's belongings and possibly attempt to hide evidence. Forensic experts later confirmed vegetation on his clothes matched samples from the wetlands where Anastasia's body was found. The autopsy was even more chilling. Anastasia had been sexually assaulted and strangled. Her body bore bruises and abrasions, clear signs that she had fought back fiercely against her attacker. The case wasn't just about a man losing control. It looked like a calculated act, followed by a desperate attempt to cover it up. Police also questioned Saluddin's Pakistani roommate, who lived in the same modest house. His initial statements were vague. He said he was asleep the night Anastasia disappeared. But phone records showed late-night activity that didn't align with his story. For a time, detectives considered whether he might have been involved. But in the end, there wasn't enough direct evidence linking him to the crime, and he was released without charges. That left Saluddin to face the weight of justice alone. The discovery of Anastasia's body devastated both locals and tourists on the island. Kos was supposed to be a safe, welcoming destination. For many, the thought that a young woman could vanish from a party and be brutally murdered was unthinkable. Anastasia's family traveled to Greece during the investigation. Her brother Adrian spoke out, saying, "We want the truth, no matter how painful. She didn't deserve this." His words echoed the feelings of thousands of people following the case across Europe. For them, Anastasia wasn't just another statistic. She was a daughter, a sister, a partner, and a woman full of life and dreams. The case finally went to trial in late 2024 in a Greek court on Kos. By now, the story had gripped not just Greece and Poland, but audiences across the world. The prosecution laid out a devastating case. DNA evidence linking Anastasia to Saludin's home. Surveillance footage showing her leaving with him and him returning hours later alone. His suspicious internet searches and the plane ticket purchased to flee the island. The forensic evidence proving sexual assault and strangulation. Prosecutors argued that Saludin lured Anastasia under false pretenses, offering hashish, then took her to his home. From there, he drove her to a secluded area near the wetlands where the crime unfolded. They described how he carefully tried to cover his tracks, removing her phone's SIM card, hiding her body in a plastic bag beneath branches, and preparing to escape Greece entirely. The defense, however, painted a very different picture. They argued that Anastasia's visit to Saludin's home had been consensual, linked to a drug deal. They claimed the evidence was circumstantial, the DNA was explainable, and the CCTV footage inconclusive. They even tried to suggest that someone else might have been responsible. But the weight of the evidence was too much. On December 6, 2024, the court delivered its decision. Saludin S. was found guilty of abduction, rape, and murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. Under Greek law, life doesn't always mean life. He may be eligible for parole after 18 years. But given the brutality of the crime and the international outrage, many believe he will spend far longer behind bars, if not the rest of his life. For Anastasia's family, the verdict was bittersweet. Justice had been served, but no court ruling could bring her back. Their vibrant, ambitious daughter and sister was gone forever. Anastasia Patricia Rubinska was a young woman full of life, dreams, and ambitions. She set out for adventure, but instead, she crossed paths with a predator who ended her story far too soon. If this case moved you, please take a moment to hit the like button. It helps us bring more awareness to stories like these. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss the next true crime story we uncover. It's 2 a.m. in downtown Columbia, South Carolina. Street lights cast long shadows as college students spill out of bars, laughing, calling for rides, scrolling through their phones. In the middle of it all, a young woman with an infectious smile steps into the back of a black car she believes is her Uber. She's less than 10 minutes from home, but she never makes it back. Hours later, her body will be discovered in a remote field, stabbed more than 100 times. Her fight for survival will leave chilling clues, and her tragic death will shake an entire nation, forcing us to rethink something we do every day, getting into a stranger's car. This is the story of Samantha Josephson, a promising law student whose life was stolen in the most unimaginable way in just few hours. Samantha Sammy Josephson was just 21 years old, a political science major at the University of South Carolina, with dreams of becoming a lawyer. She'd already been accepted into Drexel University's law school. Her friends say she was fearless, full of energy, and always the one lifting others up. Her parents, Seymour and Marcy Josephson, described her as their shining light. Independent, but family-oriented. Ambitious, but grounded. She loved adventure, travel, and being surrounded by people she loved. In every sense, Samantha was living the kind of vibrant, full life every parent hopes for their child. On the night of March 28, 2019, she was doing what any college senior would do, celebrating. Spring was in the air, graduation was weeks away, law school was on the horizon. Samantha spent the evening with friends at the Bird Dog, a popular bar in Columbia's Five Points district. The music was loud, the crowd thick, but it was nothing unusual. Like so many students, she was just enjoying a night out before heading home to rest. Just after 2 a.m., Samantha decided to call it a night. She stepped outside and ordered an Uber. But while waiting, a black Chevrolet Impala pulled to the curb. Thinking it was her ride, she climbed into the back seat. Her friends stayed behind, assuming she'd be home in minutes. It wasn't her Uber. The man behind the wheel wasn't her driver. He wasn't an Uber driver at all. His name was Nathaniel Rowland, a 24-year-old with no connection to Samantha, and a deadly plan already forming. He wasn't working for any rideshare service that night. Instead, prosecutors later said he was hunting, driving around the busy bar district, looking for someone vulnerable, someone who might mistake his car for an Uber. Once Samantha was inside, Rowland engaged the child safety locks, trapping her in the back seat. She couldn't open the doors, even if she realized the danger. When Samantha didn't come home, her friends were worried. Calls went unanswered. Texts were never read. By morning, the worry turned into panic. Back in New Jersey, her parents received the call every parent dreads: "We can't find Sammy." What followed was a nightmare. Rowland drove her far from the city into darkness where no one could hear her scream. Samantha realized something was terribly wrong. What followed was brutal and frenzied. She fought him with everything she had. Forensic evidence later revealed she fought with everything she had. She suffered over 100 stab wounds, brutal, frenzied injuries to her face, neck, head, and arms. Her arms were slashed with defensive wounds, proving she tried desperately to protect herself. After the savage attack, Rowland dumped her body in a field more than 60 miles away in rural Clarendon County. Then he tried to erase the evidence, cleaning his car, tossing items linked to the crime. While police began a frantic search, hunters in Clarendon County made a gruesome discovery: a young woman's body lying in a field. Authorities confirmed it was Samantha. Her promising life had been stolen in a single night. Police wasted no time. Surveillance footage from outside the Bird Dog clearly showed Samantha stepping into a black Chevy Impala, a car that didn't match the Uber she ordered. Within hours, officers spotted Nathaniel Rowland driving that same car. When they tried to pull him over, he ran, abandoning the vehicle. When police tried to stop Rowland, he didn't pull over. He hit the gas and tried to escape. Officers chased him through the streets of Columbia until he ditched the car and bolted on foot. Body cam footage captured the tense moments as officers shouted commands and pursued him. "Get on the ground! Hands where we can see them!" Rowland ran, but not for long. Within seconds, he was tackled and cuffed. The footage is chilling. You can hear the officer's adrenaline, see Rowland's desperate attempt to get away, and feel the moment justice began to close in. What police found in that Impala left no doubt. Samantha's blood soaked into the back seat. Child safety locks engaged. Bleach, window cleaner, and gloves, an attempt to scrub the crime scene. Samantha's phone and cleaning wipes tossed inside. Even the child seat had been removed to make space in the back, showing how calculated Rowland was. Detectives also found bleach, window cleaner, and gloves, clear signs of someone trying to cover their tracks. Rowland was arrested within 24 hours and charged with kidnapping, murder, and possession of a weapon. But as the details emerged, the horror deepened. Medical examiners determined Samantha couldn't have survived her wounds for long. The sheer number of injuries showed the violence of the attack. She'd fought him with everything she had, clawing, scratching, trying to open doors that wouldn't budge because of the child safety locks. It was overkill, prosecutors would later argue, a level of brutality that revealed Rowland's true intent. As the evidence mounted, Samantha's parents were crushed. Their daughter had done everything right, calling a ride, not walking alone. Yet a stranger exploited her trust. The Josephsons flew to South Carolina, where police confirmed the unthinkable. Samantha's life had been stolen in the cruelest way imaginable. The news of Samantha's murder made national headlines. People across the country were horrified. Ride-sharing had become such a normal part of everyday life. Millions use it daily without thinking twice. News of the case spread quickly. Millions were horrified at how easily someone could pose as a rideshare driver. Samantha's parents vowed that their daughter's death would not be in vain. Nathaniel Rowland was charged with murder, kidnapping, and possession of a weapon. But he refused to admit guilt. Instead, he pleaded not guilty, forcing Samantha's loved ones to endure every detail of her final moments during a long trial. As prosecutors built their case, one question haunted everyone. Why would Rowland do this? He wasn't robbing her. Samantha's belongings were left behind. He didn't know her. He didn't even pretend to be an Uber driver to make money. Prosecutors argued the attack wasn't about gain. It was about control and opportunity. Rowland was cruising through 5 Points that night, searching for someone vulnerable. Samantha, waiting alone for her ride, became his target. The brutality, over 100 stab wounds, showed rage and intent. This was personal to him, prosecutors told the court, even though she was a stranger. In July 2021, more than 2 years after Samantha's murder, Rowland finally went on trial. Her parents, Seymour and Marcy Josephson, sat in the front row every single day, listening to the horrific details of how their daughter died. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. Samantha's DNA on the murder weapon, a knife Rowland tried to hide. Her blood throughout the Impala. Surveillance footage showing Rowland cleaning his car hours after the killing. The defense offered no real explanation. They claimed Rowland wasn't the killer, but they had no alternative story. Before decision, Samantha's parents addressed the court. Seymour Josephson, voice shaking, spoke directly to Rowland. "You picked out our daughter, a small, sweet, beautiful child, and you ended her life. You have no soul." Marcy Josephson, Samantha's mother, described waking up every day knowing her daughter's dreams were stolen. "I will never see her graduate law school. I will never walk her down the aisle. You have taken our baby girl from us, and you have destroyed our family." Even seasoned prosecutors were in tears. It took the jury less than an hour to find Nathaniel Rowland guilty of murder, kidnapping, and possession of a weapon. When the judge asked Rowland if he wanted to speak, he declined. No apology, no emotion, no explanation. The judge's words were chilling. "This was a senseless, cruel act of violence. I sentence you to life in prison because you deserve to never walk free again." Her parents, devastated but determined, turned their grief into action. They launched the What's My Name Foundation, teaching people to always verify their rides. Check the license plate. Confirm the driver's name. Ask, "What's my name?" before getting in. Their mission was simple. Make sure no other family would have to endure what they did. South Carolina passed the Sammy's Law, requiring rideshare vehicles to display verified license plates, and making impersonating a driver a crime. The U.S. Congress introduced similar legislation to protect passengers nationwide. Samantha's tragedy saved countless others by raising awareness. Her parents turned unimaginable grief into action, making sure no one else would suffer as they did. If this case moved you, please take a moment to hit the like button. It helps us bring more awareness to stories like these. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss the next true crime story we uncover.
Help, please. I'm downstairs.
Okay, who cut you?
This girl I responded to was ready for gas. I'm pregnant.
How far along are you?
7 months. She got me on my stomach.
Can you grab a towel or anything you can get in your hands and put it on your wound and press?
I'm bleeding out.
The terror in Michelle Wilkins' voice was unmistakable. Barely able to breathe, she begged for help after the unthinkable happened. A woman who had pretended to be a friend turned into a monster, brutally cutting Michelle open in an attempt to steal the life growing inside her. What would drive someone to such unspeakable violence? Desperation? A twisted obsession? Or something much darker? Before we dive deeper into this chilling case, if you love true crime stories that reveal the darkest corners of human nature, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. March 18th, 2015, Longmont, Colorado. A quiet morning in a suburban neighborhood. It looks like any other day. Neighbors tending to their gardens, children walking to school, the soft hum of normalcy in the air. But for Michelle Wilkins, everything was about to change in the most unimaginable way. Michelle was a mother-to-be, 7 months pregnant with her first child, a little girl named Aurora. Like so many others, Michelle had dreams for her child. She'd spent months preparing, setting up a nursery, choosing baby clothes, and imagining her life once Aurora was born. There was excitement, hope, and joy. One day, while scrolling through Craigslist, Michelle saw an ad for free baby clothes. A simple offering, one that promised new things for her baby. It seemed harmless. For a mother-to-be, it was an opportunity to get a few things she needed. Michelle was no stranger to reaching out to others for help. Like so many of us, she believed in the kindness of strangers. With a heart full of optimism, Michelle drove to the house listed in the ad. She had no idea that in that very moment, she was walking straight into the arms of a nightmare. The woman she was about to meet wasn't just offering baby clothes. She was offering a deception, one that would leave Michelle fighting for her life. Dynell Lane was waiting inside. On the surface, she was like any other mother, but underneath the facade, Lane was a woman who had been through her own deep struggles, losing children, feeling the crushing weight of emptiness that no woman should ever have to face, the pain of multiple miscarriages and unfulfilled dreams of motherhood had twisted her reality. For her, a child was no longer a blessing. It became a possession, something she needed to fill the hole in her heart. As Michelle rang the doorbell, she had no inkling of the violence that awaited her. The door opened, and she stepped inside, expecting a friendly exchange, Perhaps a brief conversation about the clothes. The warmth of the house should have been comforting, but instead, it was the last semblance of normalcy Michelle would ever experience. What Michelle didn't know was that Dynell Lane wasn't just offering baby clothes. She had planned this moment carefully. She'd been waiting for this day. And Michelle's visit was the final piece of a chilling puzzle. Without warning, Lane struck. Michelle was blindsided, knocked unconscious in an instant. Her world went black. When Michelle woke up, she was no longer in a living room filled with conversation. She was lying on the floor of a stranger's home, barely able to move. The pain in her abdomen was unbearable. And then she realized something was terribly, horribly wrong. Lane had done something unspeakable. She'd cut open Michelle's abdomen, attempting to steal the unborn child from her body. The brutality of the act was incomprehensible. Michelle fought for her life, her body screaming in agony, but her mind focused on one thing: her baby. Was Aurora still alive? Was she going to lose the child she'd carried for 7 months? Despite the overwhelming pain, Michelle managed to gather the strength to reach for her phone. With trembling hands, she dialed 911. Her voice was weak, desperate. "Please help me. She took my baby." These were her last words before slipping into unconsciousness again.
Green, please.
I can't understand the street.
Green, please.
Green place. Green like the color?
Yeah.
Tell me what happened.
She cut me
Who cut you?
downstairs. I don't know.
Okay, hold on.
I responded to.
Hang on.
It correct.
Hold on.
Please. I'm downstairs.
Okay, who cut you?
This girl I responded to was trying to look at.
What did she cut you with?
A knife. I'm pregnant. She got me on my stomach.
Okay.
I'm afraid.
She cut you in your stomach?
I'm pregnant.
Okay.
Something.
What is the suspect's name?
I don't remember. I'm bleeding out.
I know you need to stay on the phone with me, okay? I'm getting everybody to you, okay?
First, dispatcher tried to collect vital information. Later, she gives her some instructions and then try to keep her engaged.
I need you to can you grab a towel or anything you can get in your hands and put it on your wound and press? How far along are you?
7 months.
7 months? Okay. Are you alone in the house?
I don't know.
You stay with me. Don't go to sleep. You stay with me. You're downstairs in the basement? And are you alone?
Yeah.
Okay.
I locked the door.
Don't you go to sleep, okay? You stay on the phone with me. Can you tell me, did she have any other weapons besides a knife?
She broke a glass.
She broke a glass? Did she stab you with the broken glass also?
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to hurt her.
You need to think real hard and tell me who it is that did this. Tell me the person's name. Think real hard, okay? Don't go to sleep. Stay with me. Tell me who it is.
I don't know how.
Everybody's on their way, okay?
Is that them?
Okay.
Are they ringing the doorbell? She cannot get to it.
Help.
Got everybody coming, okay? You hang with me. Don't hang up. Are they in the house yet?
She's downstairs.
Yeah, they're here.
Okay, I'll let you go.
The emergency responders arrived at Dynell Lane's home within minutes. But by the time they crossed the threshold, it was clear. The horror inside was far greater than anyone could have imagined. Michelle Wilkins lay unconscious, bloodied and broken. Her unborn daughter was missing. What had started as a simple Craigslist ad had now become a crime scene. One that would leave investigators struggling to comprehend the true depth of the darkness they were about to uncover. detectives immediately began to piece together the disturbing reality of what had taken place. Michelle's blood was still fresh on the floor, a chilling reminder of the violence she'd endured. But the biggest question remained: where was the baby? How could someone's life be violently torn away like this, in the blink of an eye? The crime scene told its own story. A blood-soaked towel, a knife discarded carelessly on the floor. There were no signs of a baby, no infant cries, just Michelle, alive, but barely, and a mother who had taken someone else's child. After the horrific attack, Dinelle Lane, with the stolen baby in her arms, went to the hospital, claiming that she had just given birth. She told medical staff that the baby was hers, trying to pass off the child as her own, despite there being no clear sign of a recent delivery. The staff, sensing something was off, immediately notified the police. While Michelle Wilkins was rushed into surgery, fighting for her life, the police began their interview with Dinelle Lane at the hospital. She continued to insist that the baby was hers, weaving a tale of delivering the child herself at home. But the officers were closing in on the truth. As the interview progressed, the tension was palpable. Then, the police delivered a chilling statement to Lane. "Victim has been taken here with the baby stolen from her abdomen," they said, revealing the horrific details of Michelle's attack. Lane's reaction was a mix of confusion and feigned innocence. She continued to deny any wrongdoing, but the police were already starting to piece together the crime. It was clear that Lane's story was full of holes, and her attempt to cover up the brutal act was beginning to crumble. When Dinelle Lane was arrested, the full scale of her actions began to unfold. She claimed to have delivered the baby herself, but there was no child, only Michelle, bloodied and broken. The truth hit hard. Lane had stolen a life that wasn't hers, and Michelle was the victim of an unimaginable crime. Inside the interrogation room, Dinelle Lane remained eerily calm as she was questioned. Police asked her about the baby, about Michelle. At first, Lane claimed she had delivered a healthy baby on her own, despite no evidence to support her story. But something didn't add up. Her responses were inconsistent, and the lies were too obvious to ignore. With every question, Lane's story crumbled. Investigators were closing in, but what would they find when they dug deeper into her past? What had driven her to commit such a horrific act? Dinelle Lane's past was clouded with pain, personal tragedies that had shaped her into the person she was. She had suffered multiple miscarriages, heartbreaking losses that no mother should ever have to endure. It was clear that these events weighed heavily on her mind. But what did they push her toward? Was it grief, obsession, or something darker still? Lane explained how after each miscarriage, the emptiness only grew. The need for a child to call her own became an obsession. She reached out to online groups and forums, desperate for a solution. And when the ad for baby clothes appeared, Lane saw it as the opportunity she had been waiting for. A chance to take someone else's child and fill the void inside her. Detectives weren't just looking for physical evidence. They needed answers, and the truth was buried in Lane's online activity. On her computer, they found disturbing searches, some involving unborn babies and the topic of miscarriage. It was a chilling glimpse into a woman whose desperation had reached a fever pitch. Was she planning this for months? Or was the attack something impulsive, driven by a sudden, overwhelming need? Meanwhile, Michelle Wilkins was in a battle of her own. The physical wounds were healing, but the emotional scars ran deep. As she recovered in the hospital, Michelle was faced with the heartbreaking reality. Her baby, Aurora, was gone. The loss was something no mother should ever have to endure, and yet Michelle found herself asking, what had her daughter gone through in those final moments? What had Dinell Lane? The trauma wasn't just physical. It was the thought of what could have been. Michelle's world had been torn apart, and she found herself struggling with the unanswered questions. She wasn't just fighting for her own survival anymore. She was fighting for justice for Aurora. But in those moments of pain, she held on to one thing: her baby's memory, and the hope that she would see justice done. It didn't take long for the authorities to piece the story together. On March 19th, just one day after the attack, Dinell Lane was arrested. The details were grisly but clear. Lane was charged with attempted murder, unlawful termination of pregnancy, and multiple counts of assault. The brutality of her actions sent shockwaves through the community. No one could comprehend how anyone could commit such a crime. But Dinell Lane's story wasn't finished yet. There was still more to discover. Despite the overwhelming pain, Michelle spoke out. She addressed the media, the public, and anyone who would listen. She talked about Aurora, about the life she had dreamed of for her daughter. It was a moment of raw emotion, a mother's grief laid bare for the world to see. But it was also a moment of strength. Michelle had survived the unthinkable, and she was determined that her daughter's story would not be forgotten. As the trial loomed, all eyes were on Dinell Lane. The question wasn't just about the crime. It was about her mind. What had driven her to do something so unspeakable? Was it pure malice, or was it a mind twisted by years of grief and loss? As the evidence mounted, the truth seemed clearer, but there were still unanswered questions that lingered in the air. For Michelle, the trial would be the next chapter in her journey. But no matter the verdict, it wouldn't bring Aurora back. The child she'd lost, the life that had been taken too soon, the pain would never completely fade, but Michelle's resolve would never waver. She would carry Aurora's memory forever, and her fight for justice would continue. The truth was out, but the weight of the crime still hung heavy in the air. Dinell Lane's actions had destroyed so many lives, and the pain rippled out, affecting not just Michelle, but everyone who loved her. What had driven Lane to commit such a monstrous act? And would justice truly bring Michelle the peace she so desperately sought? The courtroom was charged with tension as press, family, and the public filled the seats, awaiting what would become one of Colorado's most unsettling trials. Dinell Lane, sitting stoically, faced the consequences of a crime too horrific to ignore. Michelle Wilkins, across the room, was a mother, her heart shattered, but her resolve unbreakable. This was more than a case. It was a fight for justice, for the life of a child stolen too soon. The prosecution's case was brutal and clear. They revealed how Lane had attacked Michelle, cutting open her abdomen in a calculated attempt to steal her baby, Aurora. It wasn't just a crime of opportunity. It was an act driven by desperation, a woman's obsession with motherhood twisted by years of miscarriage and loss. But no matter how much Lane had suffered, the prosecution argued it couldn't justify the act she committed. The defense, however, offered a different perspective. Was Lane's crime the result of grief and mental illness? Had her years of loss driven her to a point where she couldn't discern right from wrong? Was she a broken woman, desperate for a child at any cost? The defense painted Lane as a victim of her own trauma, someone so consumed by grief that she had lost her grip on reality. Then, Michelle Wilkins took the stand. It was a moment that stole the breath from the courtroom. Michelle recounted the terror she endured, the unimaginable pain of waking up to find herself fighting for her life, her baby's life, only to be left with the haunting absence of the daughter she would never hold. Michelle's testimony wasn't just a recounting. It was a mother's raw, unfiltered grief. She spoke not just for herself, but for Aurora, making sure her daughter's brief life would never be erased. As the trial wore on, it was clear that the defense's claims of mental illness would not absolve Lane. The prosecution argued that Lane had meticulously planned the attack, that this was a crime of intent, not madness. The focus shifted from grief to malice. Lane's desperate need for a child had driven her to destroy another woman's future, and that was a crime with no excuse. After deliberations, the jury reached a verdict: guilty. Lane was convicted on charges of attempted murder, unlawful termination of pregnancy, and assault. Her life was sentenced to prison, but the pain Michelle Wilkins carried would never be erased by any verdict. For Michelle, justice wasn't about closure. It was about remembering. Aurora's life, though stolen, would live on in Michelle's heart and in every step she took forward, no matter how painful. The trial may have ended, but the journey to heal was just beginning. If this case moved you, please take a moment to hit the like button. It helps us bring more awareness to stories like these. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss the next true crime story we uncover. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.